This video is brought to you by Squarespace. What's up everyone, Lance Hedrick here, and today we're taking a look at a truly cool machine. This is a stovetop espresso machine. No, not like a Bialetti. This is not weak mocha, not good stuff. This is actually heavy pressure, heavy crema, heavy everything, what you think about with Italy type of espresso. Now, of course, y'all know me, if you watch my video for a long time, I'm not big into the high pressure extractions, except for, with the exception of, one type of coffee from one roaster called Sacca Crema Bar. For whatever reason, that gives me my romantic notions of old school Italy, and I enjoy that. But that's what this is able to do all on your stovetop. Now you may be asking, Lance, how the heck? Steam pressure only affords you like 1.5 bar pressure. How the heck are you getting 9 bar pressure on a stovetop? What if I told you a guy with a PhD in jet engine thermodynamics created it? Because that's who did. William Playford up in England back in 2013, while playing with his Lapavoni and looking at the thermodynamics of it, decided to take his knowledge of what he was learning in school at Cambridge to apply to espresso machines in general in order to make kind of a perfect experience. And so over the years from 2013 to 2018, he created what we see actually right here, which is the Mk1, the first iteration of the 9Barista. But what's going on in the middle bits is what's truly fascinating. Now, as you see, there's been an evolution to the Mk2. I have here the Pro model. Some of the differences, by the way, between the Pro and the Standard. If you're curious about this before the video's over, there's anodized aluminum handles on this, whereas they are, I believe, wooden on the Standard. There is a bigger cutout in the top, a bigger milled section out of the top, whereas on the Standard, it's closer to the original with a smaller milled hole. And there's also an IMS competition basket, 53 millimeters in this, whereas there's not in the other. And then also you have a stainless steel kind of shower screen, whereas it's kind of a silicone in the Standard. We have the bottom base. This is the lower boiler, and what happens here is you put water in. Now, as you can see, it's very simplistic. There is a valve right here you can pull, and it releases on the inside. So there are 2 seals in here, and then you have kind of a spring on the inside. You pull, release it, and it allows for the release of pressure, essentially. This is where the heat is transferred from your induction plate or your gas stove or whatever it might be into the coffee maker itself in order to superheat water here down in the bottom. You screw into this, kind of the most impressive piece of this whole situation, which is this, the middle part. So down here we have brass threads, and on the original there was kind of a rubber silicone type piece here. Now they have ceramic. It's capable of withholding a lot more heat. We'll take a look at it here in a second. So you have water up to here, but when you put this in, it's going to displace water, right? That's purposeful. What he has done, and what is so clever, is you put this in and it displaces water. Now he has an O-ring here. There's a silicone ring right here, which will then separate the water into 2 compartments, the lower and the upper boiler. Now the reason that is important is down here, water is going to heat and heat and heat and heat to 179 or so Celsius. Now that will hit a pressure of roughly 9 bar. It goes up into this, and as it goes in, there is a valve inside that has a piece of PTFE, kind of a cone valve type situation, that will lift to let water go through at 9 bar. So then the water comes up, and we have this piece I just took off to make it easier. Here we go. This is even better, should have done it earlier. So the liquid comes up through here, goes through this, that what he calls a heat exchanger coil, and then it feeds into here. And here is the little PTFE piece that is used with PTFE because it's very low friction, so it's able to go down and up quite easily. And when it hits that 9 bar, it opens a valve and allows it to go through. So it comes up under here into this hole, and there are 3 little holes that it comes out of. Now, not the screw holes, but there are 3 little holes underneath that you can't really see, but right in the center, 3 little holes where the water comes out and it infiltrates through the puck screen, and that's where you have it kind of doing all the magic. Then, of course, we have the portafilter at the top. Now, as I said, in the cheaper version, you have more of a silicone kind of water spread. In the Standard version, this is in the Mk1. I'm sure it's different in the Mk2. You have a kind of stock basket, but then it's just a portafilter. And it's upside down, so it's reverse portafilter. So liquid goes up due to the 9 pressure going upwards, right? So we have a portafilter that fits level, absolutely incredible. There's no need for temperature like preheating because you have the lower boiler that's getting to 179. You have the heat exchanger, which is dropping the temperature drastically to 100. And then you actually have a third situation. You might notice this, it's on a lot of electronics. It helps dissipate heat. It's also one of the modifications you can do for your Lapavoni on the group head to help dissipate heat is this idea of like metal pieces that come out and it just helps to dissipate heat. So as it continues to move up into the portafilter, it goes through this fin heat exchanger and it loses another 7 or so degrees. So through their testing, they have found they're able to bring the water from 179, maintain 9 bar pressure and cool it down to 93 without losing pressure due to the system, so that you're brewing at 9 bar at the puck with 93 degree temperature brewing water. Now, before we actually brew a coffee, I do want to talk about something that you're probably noticing already, and that is how much red you're seeing. Now, I don't mean colloquially you're getting mad. I'm talking about all of the daggum O-rings. You have one very important one here that's separating the lower, heavily pressurized lower boiler to the upper boiler. This is what is kind of separating it. Granted, it is nice and brass. It's pretty easy to get to replace, but there we have one. We have one up here, which is kind of separating, again, the low pressure, 100 degree temperature up to where the pressurized water is being released up near the top. And this is where the heat exchange coil is. But there is a ring here. We pull out the PTFE and there's another ring, another silicone O-ring on there, okay? We pull this and we had an O-ring just below it right here, and this is what is connected to the PTFE right below it, so that's important obviously to maintain. We have an O-ring here, which is where we put in the portafilter. So that one is obviously a lot lower risk one. You might have some leaks, but not a huge deal. You have an O-ring right here, which is a very important one because it's connecting the top to the bottom, right? And then of course you have 2 O-rings here on the safety valve. This is to release whenever you have pressure built up down here. This is where 9 bar of steam pressure is being built, so you need to open that up in order to release pressure. So that is what all you have going on, and they need to be replaced not super often, but you need to be aware. If you ever see a leak coming out of this, you need to replace the O-ring. If you ever see some sort of underperformance of pressure, you need to find out what O-rings need to be replaced. Only moving piece in here is the only non-metal piece, which is kind of funny. But I do think it makes sense why it's not metal. PTFE, for people that are worried about plastic, blah, 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 PTFE is like the most sterile substance on the planet. It's what they use in hospitals and at Johns Hopkins and whatnot when they need the most sterile material. They're pulling out PTFE. This is absolutely a fantastic piece of material, and with the low friction coefficient, it makes a lot of sense because it needs to go up and down and it needs to be very precise. So it makes sense why that's there. The chimney on the original is plastic, and these joints here are plastic, so they could melt or have some issues depending on the heating. This is aluminum. The chimney is now an anodized aluminum, which is super nice. And then, like I said, there are some other material changes you can find on their website, but just know that overall, they have gone for way more resistance, way more capability to maintain, like to not be dinged up, and also a big difference, obviously. So you can see the quality with the head. This one is a cast one. They're now all machine milled, all this crazy stuff. They've really stepped up the quality control in general. But you can see here, as opposed to brass, they have stainless steel down here. And of course, we have similar things up here, but down here we have that ceramic, as I was talking about earlier, instead of the silicone rubber type situation on the original. So with this, you can either get a kind of a grill for a gas stove or whatever stove you might have, or you can get one for an induction plate. So that's what I have here. Obviously, this whole thing being a circular kind of design language, it would be really cool if I had a circle induction plate, but instead I've got, the simple shape of a Squarespace, which is a sponsor of today's video. Squarespace is an incredible online tool that makes creating a website so easy. You go on there, you pick one of the designs, and you just drop and drag. You find photos that you have, make sure they're high def, nice quality. You drop them on there. You have fonts, well, guess what? They have some that you can choose from that are absolutely delicious. And on here, you can do everything in one. You can create a community. You can create a store in order to sell the products that you love to the people that you love. Don't know how to do coding and you don't know where to go? Well, guess what? Squarespace says, come on over to us because we make everything so easy. You're making circular induction stoves? Sell it there, and you can set up the web shop right there in your Squarespace domain. In addition to that, you can also create a community, a little back and forth with the people who love your products, love your posts, love your stories, love your writing, whatever it might be. It's all right there on Squarespace, and I've got a deal for you. You go to the caption down below, and because Squarespace is, sponsoring this video, sponsoring this channel, showing some faith in little old me. If you click on my link, you get 10% off your first domain purchase. So go to www.squarespace.com/Lance Hedrick or click the link in the caption down below. Helps me, helps you, helps the channel, helps everyone. And we can get this going on the show on the road. This is not something where you're going to be able to tweak all the variables in order to get exactly what you want. You have to play by the rules. They say don't put hot water in there. So guess what I say? Yes, jet thermodynamic engine, sir. We're going to put cold water in here. So let's go do that. We're going to fill it up to the line. Now make sure you don't overfill that. If you overfill it, then when you put this big hunk of monkey in, then it's going to overflow. I guess it's not the end of the world if it overflows, but you know, it is what it is. So anyway, we're going to put this in, and then what you can actually see if you look from the side is you'll see the water displacing to the upper chamber. All right, then we get that in, and you find the threadings nice and gently, and then we just screw it on. Obviously, lots of threads because we're about to experience some high pressure. So you want to make sure that this gap is no longer existing. It should take, he says, anywhere between 3 and 6 minutes to get to pressure and to begin brewing. So I'm going to go ahead and start it because I've found at a setting of 5, it takes about 4 minutes to get to full pressure and to go. So I'm going to get my coffee ready during that time. But it's going to just start immediately. There is no go button. You start heating it up, that water's going to pressurize, it's going to go through. And when it's ready to go, it's going to go. Now, it is important that we maintain that 3 to 6 kind of window. If you go to 8 minutes and above, you can overheat the system. You may say, how does any of this stuff overheat? Well, there are places that can be burnt out, and they actually have an overheating kit. So if you do actually leave it for like 10, 15 minutes and something bad does, and it does happen, they have a kit of like common failure points that you can go and replace. Replacing things is quite easy. They have instruction manuals. I went and scoured their website to really understand how much aid they are giving you. And there's lots of areas to go through in order to understand how to change, grease up the different O-rings, how to do different kits. And they have everything for sale in order to make replacements. And with this, they actually have a 5-year warranty, which is actually pretty crazy. With the Mk2, it's a 5-year warranty. On the Mk1, it was only 2 years. Now, that's great. The price is really steep, though. $750 US dollars for the standard, all right? And for the Pro, which is one I have with the anodized aluminum and some of the upgrades we talked about, it's $940 US dollars. This thing ain't cheap. But what we should remember, all of the incredible quality that we have going in here, they are building it all, assembling it all in Britain, so you're going to have higher labor costs, you're going to have higher material costs, all these things going on up there. All right, without further ado, let's start the induction stove. I'm going to put it on level 5, and we're going to let that start heating up. Should start heating up rapidly. All right. Grinding coffee, baby. You have a patented process, which you're probably also paying for 5 years of R&D as it goes on. And so, I mean, it's not a cheap thing to build. It is a very expensive thing to build, and it's something that is a labor of love, and is something you would need to really enjoy the process of the engineering behind and the uniqueness of it. I'm using about 18.5 grams of coffee. I don't have the funnel that they actually make a funnel to sell that fits with the 53 mils. Shockingly, I don't have a 53 millimeter basket, so I don't have a 53 millimeter funnel, but I just made sure I made a friggin' 49 work. All right, then we're going to tamp this down. After tamping it, we put in this dispersion screen. This actually negates the headspace, which is great. There's no headspace on that. And we're going to just lock this in. Now we're going to just wait. There we go. Things that you can do in order to go back-to-back shots, because it takes about 6 minutes overall from initially putting the water in, starting it up, letting it heat, and getting the extraction. The induction plate, you don't ever want to cool down. You could ruin it. Okay, so the induction plate, it has to cool down on its own. Same with the plate for gas stoves, whatever it might be. You have to just kind of let that live. With the actual unit, though, you can immediately run it underwater to cool it down quickly, and you can release the pressure that's trapped in the bottom with that release valve, and you can get your next shot going, but it is going to be about a 6-minute turnaround. So you're not going to be able to just rip shots when guests come over. You have 6 guests, it's going to be over half hour for everyone to get a double shot of espresso. So that right off the bat, not ideal for a lot of people. So it's starting to steam up. That means that we have boiling water in the upper chamber, which means that we have the water going through the coiler at 9 bar. It's working its way up. It's probably going through the puck, and here it comes. Here we go. So they say it should take about the same time as espresso, so around 30 seconds or so. So we have that coming up nice and slow. So we have a nice dark roast in here. I've got the Saka Crema bar. So we're doing that nice slow extraction. Look at that. And then, of course, the steam is from that heat exchanger, right? That is a unpressurized area. And so as it's heating up, it's going to be causing steam. So we have nice steam, but there's not like water flying everywhere. They've created it in a way to allow for a much more smooth process here. So it's pretty much done. I might pull it now because I want it to be a bit more ristretto than anything else. But the thing is that I don't really know how much is going to be there. So Let's pull it now and see. Typically, you get up to about 42, 45 grams. I'm going to go ahead and pull it now, though, and we're going to pour and see. Oh, yeah, I pulled that perfectly. 33 grams. Now, it'll keep extracting just a bit longer. More is going to come out. Obviously, there's the pressure still there. But we have 33 grams out, and look at that. Look at that. I mean, that... crazy. Honestly, it's unbelievable. This machine makes some of the best tasting traditional espresso I've had. That steam's right in my face. Get out of here. Just as a quick thing, I just doused this with water so it cooled down. We can take a rag and just pull that to release the pressure from the base. I didn't want to burn myself, so I used a rag between my finger and that. But we pulled, now it's released the pressure. So now we can actually disassemble this. But I'm going to let this sit for just a second. What's happening is there is no headspace, effectively no headspace. When we push that thing on, I mean, the liquid's coming up and it's just pushing through. No pump, so it's constant pressure. It's going through that tiny little tube, which is equalizing everything. There's no jutting at all. And so you have perfect temperature going through it. Everything's all solid, consistent. Genuinely, nothing can beat the texture that I've gotten from the 9Barista. Am I saying that you can't get same texture on some sort of nice direct lever or spring lever where you can bleed the air, yada, yada, yada? No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying nothing beats it. I think this gives me better texture than any pump machine I've probably ever used, like whether it's rotary or vibratory pump. It does such an impeccable job of texture. It's absolutely insane. The fact that there are no variables for you to mess with, as long as you have grind size right, you're good to go. It is that simple. You don't have to worry about anything else because this does the temperature management and pressure management for you. So that's really cool. Now, as you can see, there's a little bit of water caught up here. So you got to dump that in the sink. Now we're going to take this and we're just going to unscrew the base. So you can do this pretty immediately after brewing as long as you cool it down under the sink. Nothing's going to be shocked and cracked. This is a rotund, robust build. So you can sit there and flash it with cold water. It's going to be fine. You put a friggin' cold bath, it's going to be good. So anyway, we pull that. We get that out. Set this down like so. And then we have this that has just a little bit of water in. We'll pour that out. And we're going to go ahead and get rid of the coffee in here. So it does take a little bit of time between to really get things all, ready to go. But if you have your water ready, you have your coffee ready, dialed, whatever, you should be pretty fast between it. But it's still going to take a minimum of 6 minutes, depending on how fast your boiler goes. But anyway, then we have it all broken back down, ready to go one more time. So now I'm going to change grind size a bit and get a lighter coffee. Now the lighter coffee is likely going to be brewing quite differently. And I don't feel like redialing in, so we're just going to see what happens and taste what we get. All right, let's get this heating up again. Go to level 5, and we're going to let that sit there. Now, I cannot stress this enough. You do not have control over variables. This is going to 9 bar. And what that means is, if there's not enough resistance from your puck, it's going to fly through and cause bubbles and spurts, and it's going to be crazy. It's literally like an upside down channeled shot, right? Or just gusher type shot. So it's going to be fine though. The speed of the water is not super quick, so you can do lower pressure shots through it. It's just going to be at 93 degrees, and it's going to look kind of weird, which is fine. That means you can do gusher style shots on it just fine. It's not going to hit 9 bar if it can't hit 9 bar. That's the thing. Yes, it's coming out at 9, but it's going to lose pressure immediately once it hits nothing, right? I can have a lot of pressure in my fist when I hit a wall, but if I'm punching air, there's like no pressure because there's nothing pushing back, right? So we got to understand that. All right, now this is heating up and it's going to take, 4 minutes or so. Let's grind this coffee up and get going. Now this is the polar opposite of the Saka Crema Bar. This is from Mood Trap, a roaster out in Singapore. Super light roast. So it's going to behave very differently. Now, the reason I'm doing this and not dialing in is twofold. One, it's going to be like this for a lot of you, your first time trying it. This will likely not pull in a beautiful way, I'm going to assume, because I'm not dialing it in. But also, we want to see if it can taste good when it's pulling as a gusher, which is something I tend to enjoy. And so there are some of you that like kind of old school style espresso, like me, like that Saka, but also like the occasional light roast. So we're going to see what's going on. Now, of course, I've tried this before, and I can tell you can make fine light roast with it, especially if you dial it into more traditional parameters. But it can do kind of gusher-style shots okay, but it's way more hit and miss because the temperature is a little higher than I like for gushers. I prefer, mid-80s. But anyway, we're going to put in our little guy right there. Then we're just going to lock it on in. And now we wait, as per usual. As it's going on, this is still something that can suffer from lime scale buildup, so be aware of that. You still have pressurized areas going on. If you're reusing water, just like in a water kettle, you're going to cause, lime scale, and this can be affected by lime scale. There are, little veins, little tunnels that it can get caught into. Here comes the steam, meaning that we have super hot water going through that coil, which means we're about to see some spray on the top, and here it comes. Oh, there's a channel. Did you see that? Oh, this is actually great. So this is running faster than normal, but it's going to be more of a gusher. This should give us like a 20-second shot if we were to start the timer there at the beginning and let it go through. But here we go. Oh, this is fantastic, actually. But we did have a fun little upside-down channel. Or as you see, bubbles are really starting to be pushed up. This is similar to channels that are coming out from an up-down portafilter. What you have to remember is, on an up-down portafilter, as it's coming out, those bubbles that would be showing kind of expel into the air. It's coming up, so it's showing the bubbles. It's not different. So keep that in mind. But anyway, this is done. So we're going to turn that off, and then we're going to see what the yield is. Okay, so on the yield, we got about 38.5. Now, like I said, you're not going to be worried about overheating like with a mocha. You pull the mocha off, put it under water to cool it down. This is not direct from the chamber to the top. It's going through all those heat exchangers, so it's maintaining that temperature. It cannot be heating up more and more as time goes on. Now, what can happen is you're having the same flow rate going through near the end as you did at the beginning, so it's going to speed up and things are going to keep happening, so you can have issues that way. But turning off the heat isn't going to really change that. This is a light roast, pulled probably in 20 seconds. I didn't really count it, but from the first moments you see liquid, you probably want to add 5 seconds to that because that means water has been going through the puck. But anyway, it's actually brilliant. That's actually a really good shot. And now, of course, we're going to let our boy Ugo take a sip of this. This is more traditional. It's not really something we drink in the studio, but hear that? Smooth. And this is someone who loves to give me crap. So good. Like, that is... I'll actually drink all of that. This is the first light roast boomer style shot I've had in a long time that I'm gonna drink it all of. Wow. That's really nice. While I love it, the novelty of it, the simplicity of it, the approach of it, and honestly the brilliance behind the design and the intentional care and years that went into it, I'm not someone that wants that much pain in a workflow, like having to disassemble everything, make sure everything's clean, make sure everything's really tight, make sure the seals are perfect so I don't have an explosion, even though there are safety valves built in to make that fine. It's just not something I'm gonna want. It's not fun enough, essentially, for me to want to do this frequently. Either I'm gonna use like my Streetman or one of my vintage lever machines to make an espresso if I'm feeling manual, or I'm gonna use something like my Meticulous if I want it automated. This is just a bit too many steps for me to kind of mess with in order to consistently do it. Does that mean I won't use it every now and then? Of course not. Of course I will. And honestly, the texture it gives me is not as easily gettable even on lever machines. Like this, it's just like, boom, it's automatic. I can't really explain it. You get texture even when it's not dialed in super well. You get sweetness and texture, bada bing, bada boom. But I mean, it's at the expense of workflow. It's at the expense of almost $1,000. But I do know there is a market out there for this. It's just a much smaller market than for other machines. And for those of you who are interested in this, I will tell you the build quality of this is absolutely insane. Yes, you need to upkeep it with the O-rings and whatnot. And I've read online that for some people, they need to change it out a lot. But it seems to me that some of these people may not have the best backgrounds and maintenance. And so if you're maintaining it, taking it apart, making sure everything's nice and lubed and, stayed together well, you should be fine for a really long time with the original factory O-rings. They do give you one boiler O-ring and one seal for the safety valve down here when you order it, but everything is, purchasable on their website. Nothing else should ever need to be replaced. Honestly, it's built that well. I think you're good to go for quite a long time. So for those of you that have even a little bit of interest in it, I would say incredible espresso. It is built super well. It takes out a lot of the guessing. You just need to get your grind size in right, and then obviously the boil time. Once you have that, you're good to go. Now, if the only way to brew espresso was 9-bar pressure and we were still 40 years ago and the mindset of 9-bar and thermal stability and everything, then yeah, this would be at the top of the list. But the fact is, I want more control in my shots, for a daily driver, and this doesn't really give me that. But a lot of you, all you want is Saka Crema Bar daily at 9-bar, and I'm telling you, for as mindless as this is, and how much easier it is to be dialed in to go, I'm telling you, it's fantastic in coffee. So if you're even a little interested in this, I'm telling you, this is great. For real, for real. I hope that it was helpful. I hope that those of you who've been curious about it, I hope I answered the questions for you. I want to thank the team at 9Barista. I did a kind of an interview style thing with them on a live I did on my Unfiltered around a year and a half ago at an expo in the US, I believe, where they answered a lot of the questions. You can go check that out as well if you want to hear from them talking about the changes from the first version to the second version, the upgrades they made in their building process, quality process, milling process, machining process, all of that stuff. It's really cool. But that is it for me today. I hope that this was helpful. If you enjoyed, please consider hitting the like and subscribe. Check out my Patreon where we'll be giving this one away quite soon. It's almost never been used. I didn't really use it very much, to be honest with you. With the Mk2, I've used it a lot more. But in addition to that, we'll be giving, there's lots of things that we give away there. Everything we buy through Patreon goes, and even things that sometimes people send me without me asking, and I don't review, it just goes out. It goes in the door, out the door, because I didn't ask for it. Someone else take it. So go check that out as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you brew something tasty today. And cheers.